Military blunders that happened again. Top 10 wars where history repeated itself. There are numerous instances of military leaders and countries replicating past mistakes throughout the annals of warfare. Even with centuries of expertise, the same mistakes have frequently had disastrous results, derailing whole campaigns as a result of lessons overlooked or forgotten. These 10 battles illustrate how history has sadly repeated itself and demonstrate how failure can come from the same mistakes made at any time in history. 1. The invasions of Russia by Napoleon in 1812 and the Soviet Union by Hitler in 1941. Napoleon Bonaparte's 1812 French invasion of Russia and Adolf Hitler's Operation Barbarossa in 1941 is two of the most notorious instances of military miscalculations when history nearly replicated itself. Rather, his soldiers were completely destroyed by the Russians' scorched earth tactics, harsh winter and great distances, leaving him with less than 100,000 survivors. The German army moved far into Soviet territory, underestimating the extent of the Soviet Union and the resilience of the Russian people. However, severe winter weather, overextended supply lines, and strong Soviet opposition forced the German army to retreat. The failure of the leaders to comprehend the difficulties presented by Russia's terrain and climate, as well as the tenacity of the Russian army and people, led to the collapse of both campaigns. 2. The Vietnam War 1955 to 1975 and the Boer War 1899 to 1902. There are striking parallels between the Vietnam War and the Boer War, which was fought in South Africa between the British Empire and the Boer republics. The Boers employed hit-and-run tactics, terrain awareness, and widespread local support to frustrate their occupiers, drawing the British, who had superior artillery technology and troops, into a drawn-out battle. Similar to the British in the Boer War, American forces were forced to fight an unwinnable war that sapped their morale and resources. Principal resemblance. Both conflicts demonstrate the foolishness of underestimating a smaller opponent's capacity for guerrilla warfare and the ineffectiveness of superior military technology against non-conventional strategies. 3. The Korean War 1950 to 1953 and the Crimean War 1853 to 1856. Instances of multinational alliances failing to comprehend the intricate geopolitics of the areas they were acting in include the Crimean War and the Korean War. Under the auspices of the UN, the US and its allies fought the North Korean invasion of South Korea during the Korean War. Similar to the Crimean War, a coalition of countries entered a regional fight without fully realizing the consequences, which resulted in a brutal, protracted struggle that came to a standstill and left Korea divided to this day. Principal resemblance. Both wars serve as examples of how difficult it can be for multinational coalitions to function without a cohesive plan or a thorough grasp of local dynamics, which can lead to protracted battles with ambiguous results. 4. World Wars I and EU 1914 to 1918, 1939 to 1945, and the First and Second Punic Wars 264 to 241 BC, 218 to 201 BC. There are parallels between World War I and World War II, and the First and Second Punic Wars between Rome and Carthage. Two superpowers engaged in a series of wars seeking domination in the Mediterranean, known as the Punic Wars. Each war laid the foundation for the next. There are striking similarities to the World Wars. Germany was humiliated and economically destroyed by the Treaty of Versailles following the carnage of World War I. Principal resemblance. In both situations, the unresolved issues from the First War sowed the seeds for the subsequent battle, with one war directly causing the other. 5. The Battle of Midway 1942 and the Spanish Armada 1588. Overconfidence was a major factor in both the Battle of Midway during World War II and England's defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. With the expectation of winning quickly, Spain's King Philip E dispatched his formidable fleet to invade England. But as a result of miscalculations, unfavorable weather, and the English Navy's superiority, Spain suffered a crushing defeat. But American intelligence had cracked Japanese codes, so they knew about the impending attack. Principal resemblance. Both times, poor strategic judgment and an overconfidence in naval dominance resulted in crushing setbacks that changed the direction of the wars. Sticks. The Soviet Union's collapse in 1991 and the Roman Empire's overstretching in the 5th century AD. Classic examples of overstretching resulted in the loss of once great empires of the fall of the Roman Empire in the 5th century and the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. However, because of ongoing conflict, corruption, economic hardships, and overly expansive frontiers, Rome was susceptible to barbarian tribe invasions. Both times, external forces worsened internal weaknesses, causing once mighty empires to fall apart. Principal resemblance. The stresses of governing vast, varied lands and failing to adjust to both internal and foreign problems led to the demise of both Rome and the Soviet Union. 7. The Cold War 1947 to 1991 and the Peloponnesian War 431 to 404 BC. The Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union and the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta demonstrate the perils of military and ideological conflict between two superpowers. The democratic Athenian Empire and the oligarchic Spartan alliance fought a bloody battle for control of Greece during the Peloponnesian War. Comparably, the Cold War left both superpowers worn out, and even after the Soviet Union fell, the United States was left to deal with the fallout for decades. Principal resemblance. Long-lasting conflicts between two opposing powers depleted resources in both wars, ultimately culminating to one side's victory, but at considerable cost to both. 8. The American invasion of Iraq 2003 to 2011 and the French invasion of Mexico 1861 to 1867. Napoleon I of France attempted to create an empire in Mexico in 1861 by appointing Maximilian I as emperor. Comparably, the 2003 U.S. invasion of Iraq succeeded in overthrowing Saddam Hussein at first. Both invasions ignored the complexity of local politics and opposition groups in favor of the premise that military might alone could install a sympathetic government. 9. The Vietnam War 1955 to 1975 and the Battle of Gettysburg Forest 9/8. The experience of the U.S. military in Vietnam is reminiscent to the Battle of the Gettysburg Forest, where Germanic tribes attacked and defeated 3 Roman legions. Both times, a force with greater technological prowess was drawn into uncharted area and left opens to ambush by a more mobile, smaller adversary. Both engagements highlight the peril of underestimating the enemy's terrain awareness and asymmetrical warfare capabilities. 10. The 1944 Normandy invasion and the Battle of Waterloo 1815. There are parallels between the invasion of Normandy and Waterloo in the way a committed coalition of countries came together to overcome an apparently unstoppable military force. Similar to this, Nazi Germany met its demise in 1944 with the Allied invasion of Normandy, as the combined strength of the United States, United Kingdom, and Soviet Union decisively defeated Hitler's armies. Conclusion. Military leaders have frequently ignored the lessons learned from the past throughout history, which has resulted in the recurrence of expensive errors. Mistake mistakes over confidence, underestimating the enemy, and overextension has had disastrous results in wars both ancient and modern, dating back to Rome. These 10 instances show how history, particularly in the field of conflict, has a tendency to repeat itself. Let us know in the comments what you think about this, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more captivating content on our YouTube channel.